2, 1. What are you laughing at? What are you laughing at? My buddy Preston Weeks. For everybody listening, and if everybody's wondering, I'm wearing one of my new hoodies. It's a cherub covered in tattoos. My throat is on fire. I don't know what happened. I was just telling Preston I got my tonsils out in 2014 because this was happening like every year my entire life. And I really haven't had a sore throat since like 2014. And I woke up in the middle of the night and it's just like it's on fire. Tylenol, aspirin, drinking hot water. I'm eating Ricola as Preston just graciously serenaded me with. So I'm not.
Ricola.
It's pretty good, dude. It's pretty sexy. It's a pretty
Hey,
sexy deep voice.
that's my 8th job.
So for everybody listening, I say it like it's a bad thing. I'm like, I'm not going to be talking as much. I'm sure everyone that listens to this podcast is like, thank Christ, this moron is finally going to shut up. This was a hit. This was a CIA hit to get me to shut up. But for everybody that doesn't know Preston, because you haven't been on here in a while, Preston, please introduce yourself. Aside from being a baritone singer.
Thank you. Yeah, except my occupation for lozenge companies. No, I actually run a company called Operations X. So, but rewinding a little bit about myself, I'm a car nut. I'm a major car nut. Ever since I was 2 years old, I've loved cars. And I built car companies. I started with one $1,600 car and built that into, I owned and co-owned 15 car dealerships, owned a bunch of different vertical companies around those businesses, paint companies and shops and finance companies and different things like that. So, and then I got into energy, ran an energy company for a while, and then exited out of that then in 2019. But I've always helped businesses. And so I have Operations X. So that's like my business solutions company. So it's just things that I've built that have been through my entrepreneurial journey to help other companies. And then now I launched a training, like I wrote a book with Mitzi Purdue and Mark Victor Hansen, How to Be Up and Down Times. We released that last year. And so I have a bunch of other projects with those people. So I get a number of things. Yeah, I launched a training. I launched a new training called Formula EQ to help people to get in their peak mindset. So it's all about peak mindset, being there all the time, letting things not affect you, letting things just roll off your back, and having that kind of internal resilience, basically.
So you're wildly successful and more successful than I'll ever be. And maybe it makes sense that you're in a nice shirt and a blazer and I'm wearing a hoodie with a cherub with face tattoos smoking pot. Maybe the writing's on the wall. maybe I need to look in the mirror. But
you'll hear you've got your own thing, man. That's the thing. Everyone's got their own space. Everyone's got their own niche, like I love it. You just you.
this is my peak mindset. A cherub with a face tattoo. But one thing I've stalking you on your Instagram is about renewable energy, and we talked about last time Tesla, and I remember you said kind of like Nikola, right?
Yeah.
And I thought you were butchering it because Nikola Tesla, and no, there's actually a company called Nikola, and they're hydrogen powered, but not important or possibly important. But what are you doing with like renewable energy, or what are your thoughts on it? What's coming down? Because I mean, I know like buzzwords, right? And I'm like, oh, solar power, CO2 emissions, you gotta lower the carbon footprint. But it's like I have no idea what's going on. Like I'm oblivious. I mean, again, look at me. Like I don't know what's going on.
You're in the know. You're talking with people. You're making things happen. That's on the forefront of what's happening, really. Yeah. You're gonna get some endorsement here for
I know. Good Lord.
Brought to you by Ricola, making podcasts happen even when people are deathly ill.
Hi, how you doing? Ricola. It's Ricola, powered by Nicola.
You should have heard him 20 minutes ago.
Fuck you.
No, to what you're talking about with the where I am now. So I've kind of moved away from the development side, but there's so much happening with that. So there's so much happening where companies are actually starting to, adopt it. When I got into even in the solar not that long ago, which I started to enter it back in 2016. Companies couldn't figure it out. They just didn't even know how to deal with it. So like I'd meet with their financial people, and there wasn't a way to even connect, all the dots. And they're like, no, this doesn't make sense. And they'd feel like it was a distraction. So those kind of things are changing. Adoption's changing. The big push right now, there's a couple of things that are happening. So electric vehicles are being adopted. Like Tesla, their stocks, gone through the roof. The company value, Musk, his value, all those things are just skyrocketed. Um, car adoption, all the companies are starting to make the cars, but the power's got to come from somewhere. And the grid is not set up today, not even close to be able to support it. And so there's got to be something that happens. There's something in the future that needs to happen. Either the grid needs to be built up a lot and changed a lot, or there needs to be a change in, how the energy is built and distributed. So, I've got a whole view on the long-term shot of things, of where it should go, what I think it should go. But yeah, you see that happen in demand. You look at the driving demand, and people haven't been driving because of COVID, but driving will come back. Transportation will come back. People want to, move around. Everything's pretty much normal. It feels that way almost, where I'm at now in Arizona. Like I coach my son's little league team, and I was there the other day, and, I forgot my mask in the car, and I was like halfway to the field, and I turn around to go get it. And then I look over at the field, and no one has a mask on. I was like, all right, cool. Like I'm supposed to be having a mask on because I'm the coach here, but no one does. So it's all right. It's cool.
That segment is going to be used in court in 14 days when the whole little league team dies. You're going to get 14 life sentences.
Well, no, that's the thing is that's what they have to do for companies, though, is take that liability away. That's what you're talking about, to de-risk, companies to be able to go out there and go, okay, we can offer our product and people have the choice to show up or not. And it's their choice. It's not the company's fault, and I think it should be. I think the power is, everything I teach in all my things, all the way back to my training, is the power is within the person. That's also, if you jump, ahead, if this is recorded in the future, 20 minutes, that's also my philosophy on energy. But when we get to that point, but no, it's just, just doing what you can. Yeah.
So I never thought about that till you had just said that. Because you're right, the grid isn't set up. Right? It's kind of like, like we have a lake house, and we have like, family and cousins and every cousin's kid, and it just ends up when there's like 100 people there. And like there's only so many places you can like plug in a phone, right? And everybody's got a phone and an iPad. And if you put out like a power strip, like everyone's phone charges slowly because you're putting all these things on something that wasn't designed for that. Finally, we got some big like community power strip or like charging station just for that purpose. But in the same way, yeah, the grid wasn't, the first electric car. Sure, it was like a novelty. The grid probably wasn't designed, or we know wasn't designed, and probably isn't suitable for like all of traffic to be charging as opposed
Right.
to filling up. So, and then that leads back to the question of, it's like the joke of like, I have a Tesla and I'm making the environment. I wish I had a Tesla, but it's like, or I have an electric car, I have an EV, and I'm making the world like a cleaner place because I charge instead of filling it up with gas. And it's like, well, where's the electricity coming from? And it's like
Yeah. Right.
that coal-fired power plant, and it's like, so do you think? So what's going to be the move? Are they just going to jack up existing fossil fuel systems to provide more power to the grid, or are we going to start seeing more and more jumps in solar? Because solar always seems like it's been just around the corner for like 20 years. And I didn't
Yeah.
really ask one question, just kind of said a bunch of bullshit. But what are your thoughts, Preston?
No, no. So no, I think so. I think solar adoption's huge. I think, but the big gap there, so is the rest of the time, and then and so the key word, the big buzzword is storage. That's a big word. That's been the big word in the energy business for the past, especially 3 years. But storage is everything, and so much of that power and that technology has been put into batteries. So the technology that's going into the cars is going to come into the home. So that's going to come full circle. So the reason these companies are investing billions and billions of dollars into battery technologies isn't just for the cars. It's because all these different things are going to have to have batteries and store batteries. And as we move into things, like you look at trends even in homes, they're making fully electric homes. All the systems in the homes are electric. And then if your car is electric and your home's electric, and they're more efficient though, but everything's electric, all that demand has to come from somewhere. And where you get these pinch points that'll come in the future are these places where people congregate and stay in mass groups, or have to stay for a long time, and they have to leave their cars or different things like that. Like, first of all, like, how does a car dealer function? So like, say I'm a car dealer, I've got 150 cars on my lot. Someone wants to test drive them, you've got to keep all those charged. Now, how do you do that? If they're all electric, because usually you have a lot, tech running a gas can out there, topping them off or whatever it is, kind of a thing to make sure that they've got fuel. You look at auction, you look at airport, what about if you're flying out, what if you have, however many, I don't know, cars are at the airport, and they're sitting there for a week, and these people need to charge up to get back home, or different things like that. So there's different situations that'll be hurdles they have to overcome, and that's infrastructure based. But if they can, like on the car side of things, they can overcome those challenges by increasing the drive time and decreasing the charge time. So those two things, making it accessible at your home, going back to that, like, decentralizing everything and making it available at your home so you can charge it, and you can actually charge it fast, because you have to have an upgraded home on some level to charge your car fast. And so those will be more developed and accessible as they come. But then to your point, where is the power coming from? How much are you paying for it? Those types of things. And so I've got more answers for that too, but
It isn't, and I may be completely wrong, and I probably am because I'm a moron, but
don't say that.
because I'm the smartest man in the history of the world. Take that arrogance and run with it.
You go with it. You got it.
You go with that, bud. Just
You
forget
own it.
about the hoodie.
You own it.
Forget
Yeah,
about
you
that.
own it. Just go like this when you say it. I'm the smartest man in the world.
I'm the smartest man in the world.
Yeah.
Whoever was watching this podcast is surely tuned out by now. For 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 solar panels, isn't there like it's like carbon fiber, right? Like not carbon fiber, carbon nanotubes, right? 100 times stronger than steel, like 1,000 times lighter, but it's insanely expensive to produce them. Without them, you can only go to certain distances. Like, sure, we could build a space elevator out of it, but if you try to stretch it for more than like a meter, like we don't have the technology, it just gets too expensive. There's like a point where it's like the production of carbon nanotubes will fall to a point, and it's like that's some point in like the 2030s or 40s. And it's like when that happens, we'll be able to build skyscrapers like miles tall that never fall over. But the point is there's this like point on a graph where
Yeah.
it's like it, all the things, cross at one point, and that's when it's commercially viable. Is there
Mhm.
something with solar panels where there's a point where they become powerful enough and cheap enough that the car doesn't need to be plugged in, it runs directly off solar? Or is there forever a barrier to that because the amount of energy you're expending to drive can't be filled up fast enough by like passive absorption of photons?
Yeah, no, I think things will happen. I think the cars will charge up in ways that we aren't even thinking of right now. That's why we need things like, space exploration and these like things that kind of don't maybe make sense to people all the time, because those are the ways, those are
Mm-hmm.
the areas where we figure out and test
Uh-huh.
these new technologies and these new crazy things, like, how do you get power when you're on Mars?
Yeah,
It's like, okay,
it's always unexpected avenues that it ends up
right.
bleeding backwards, right?
Yeah, and
Like,
they put money on those things that wouldn't conventionally get put into, like a, commercial project or something like that,
yeah.
and then push the envelope further, and they do the
Hmm.
things that don't make sense, that don't make financial sense now, that hopefully eventually do. But yeah, one of the scary things, and one of the biggest things, that I think is a fear for the future, that kind of, you meant, or you brought up the topic, but it's like resources, is mineral resources and owning mineral resources. It's a big problem in the world today that, China's buying up mineral resources all over the world and owning everything with
Hmm.
that.
Hmm.
I see that happening a lot, and a lot around, mining and energy and different things like that. And so, all those plays, all those, pieces are really important to the whole big picture,
Hmm.
things and making it all work. But I think too, the cost too, what you're saying, I think the cost can come down. Like the cost of solar are, totally affordable. The issue with like solar right now, solar is the most popular thing. So like that's the thing people understand the easiest. But the issue with that is that there's been no barrier to entry with solar. So any idiot on the street has been able to go out there and sell solar,
Hmm.
which has pushed the industry to grow, which is one thing, but it's also created a lot of misleading, sales and misleading value and misleading ownership and misleading directives that have been out there that people have bought into, and then they've created problems later. So, so some of those things, and then, the other big gap too, and this is something that's a huge gap, is monetizing systems that are used.
Hmm.
If you put a solar system and a battery system on your house right now, you might spend, a fifth of the cost of the house
Hmm.
on the system, right? And so how do you get the value out of it later? Like there's nothing that's actually standardized to connect that to the bank, or that to a loan, or that to a dollar amount where someone can go in and actually finance it. There's nothing that's been developed that's standard and accepted across the board. So that's a system gap, right there. I think that's a huge market opportunity. And I see I've spent a lot of space, or a lot of time around this space, but also a big solution too, because, if someone has that on their house, how do they get out of it? How do they own it? What value does it put on the house, or does it put debt on the house by the way they purchased it, based off of what's left on the system value? So it protects not only the owner, but it protects the buyer, and it hopefully, makes eventually installers or sellers accountable too.
So what you're saying is we need a war with China. That's what I've pulled out of this. Is it comes back to minerals in
We
China.
need minerals. We need minerals badly. Like we need to
China,
buy mineral, like rights, around the world. And that if you look at what's happening in Africa and
well, I was about to say China's Belt and Road Initiative. They're spending $5 trillion, right? Because China, in their actual homeland territory, they own 30% of the world's ores, but 90% of the trade. Because I guess their ores are concentrated in one spot. And with their Belt and Road Initiative, they're spending $5 trillion over like 20 years throughout Africa and South America. You build all these ports for these third world nations, and then when they can't pay up, you say, hey, don't worry about it, just let us dock our Chinese warship there, which is evil, but it's what we've been doing since the 50s. And so, China's just catching up to us. I respect the hustle. But they're also moving into South America. And why the United States has closed down, I think, like 300 of our bases in Europe in the past 5 years, and we're opening them all throughout Africa. And what's becoming more and more kind of obvious is no one's scared of a Soviet invasion of Europe anymore, right? Those fears died 30 years ago. The new kind of area of contention seems to be Africa. And once again, a bunch of white people and Asian people are going to go rape the land of Africa like imperialists. But it seems like that's where the world's going. And when batteries are built on rare earth metals, when all of our electronics are, Tesla, they have to have cobalt from Africa or some of Africa. It seems that's where the world's going, right? And it's like, us going to the Middle East, like hint, hint, wink, wink, not because of the oil, I promise. Now all of a sudden we're doing this massive military shift to Africa, and so is China. It seems that other, higher ups have looked at that and said that's the next oil. And you heard it here first. Preston is calling for an all-out total war with China, which I don't agree with. I think war's bad, but we can agree
those
to.
are your words. Those are your words.
Those are your words.
Throw
Don't
me into
no.
the-
Those are your words right there.
throw me into that
I'm
one.
an innocent cherub, and
Yeah, you're
I'm just eating cough drops. You're the defense contractor war profiteer. But no, but really,
I'm gonna have a hit on me.
yes. Well, hey, you know what? Good. That means you're doing something right in this world. But yeah, truly, it seems that that's where everything's going. Now, is there going to be a shift in that? It's like if you can't get oil, what you do is you make cars that become super, super efficient, right? So
Right.
maybe if we can't get limitless ores, are there going to be alternative fuel sources? Are we going to shift away from that? Does any
Right.
of that, like, does that make sense? Like,
Yeah, right. No, so yeah, no, I agree completely. And two, I think in the future, like what we imagine right now, a battery, might look different too, especially on a home, where there's all these different types of systems that kind of store energy per se, but they're not like a battery
mhm,
where there are different thermal things that happen. They're different, you know, type of reaction things or gases, different types of gases that you can collect or create. I've worked with a company that has an at-home um, hydrogen electrolyzer that
oh
you
shit,
can, run, and you just basically put electricity and water into it. And it's
mhm,
meant to be, on someone's property that has like solar, like a solar system of a certain size, and they have excess solar,
mhm,
that they just want to like dump into something. They can put it into this and then store the gas, and then the gas can be stored for, to either run a generator later, where if you're, up a creek and you need backup or something, or it can be used actually. So, and then the guy that owns the company has actually built it into run things in his house. So he used the hydrogen to cook with and to heat with and to do different things, in the house.
that's
And
badass.
but yeah, so like what you're saying, the new fuels, and then you see that, like we talked about at the beginning of the show, the Nikola trucking company, um motor company or whatever they call themselves now. You know, they
Mm-hmm.
do a lot of different things. They do side by sides, but they do the hydrogen, you know, stuff too.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it'll be interesting to see, you know, what other types of things that are available. Where you see like graphene, you know, graphene is kind of the big, you know, buzzword for a material that's like the magic, you know, stuff. Whoever figures out how to make that in mass is going to be the next trillionaire.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
Are we gonna see? Are we gonna see the never fully realized power potential of nuclear energy? I mean, yeah. I mean, obviously, the mind goes to Chernobyl. Um, what was the Japanese one? Uh, Fukushima. Fukushima Taiichi. Yeah, I think 3 Mile Island, Idaho Falls. Like, your mind goes to everything that goes wrong. But in terms of energy density, you would need. I had on two guys from Oxford that are studying nuclear fusion, and the amount of power you can get from 90 train cars of coal a day for 365 days is equivalent to half a train car of uranium once a year, which is equivalent to half a drop of seawater for fusion. But fusion, that's way off in the distance. Nuclear power, which we have figured out, and we've had nuclear submarines since the 50s, right? The Nautilus came up under the North Pole, which Eisenhower watched like on like live. Like, we have that power. Its energy density is off the charts. And sure, it's great that we have electric vehicles, but they still plug into the grid and they still need to be fueled by something. And if we don't come up with some alternative, what it's going to be is we're just going to keep burning more shit. There's just like a middleman, but we're still putting all the same stuff into the atmosphere. Do you think we're, because there are all these, these future ideas, right? Graphene or hydrogen
yeah,
fuel cells or hydrogen or electrolyzing and hydrolyzing at home or nuclear fusion. And those are great and everything. But we've had nuclear fission reactors figured out for 70 plus years. 70, yeah, it's about 70 years. And Eisenhower said power too cheap to meter. It would be it would be inefficient to even measure it because it's so cheap.
mm-hmm.
Are we going to see are we ever going to see that fully realized? And I know you're not like a nuclear physicist, but you are an alternative energy or you're well versed in it. Is the car market finally going to be the thing that spurs the car market, and then the realization that to get all these minerals we'd have to go to war with China? Is this squeezing? Is this squeezing the all these pressures coming from every area that finally the only way to do this will be with nuclear power? Or do I just have no idea what I'm talking about?
No, there are people pushing the envelope of nuclear power for sure. And that's happening, you know, every day. I know people that are working on projects with new technologies, new ways to make things, to do mini, you know, reactors, to do, you know, so, you know, power can be made in more places and different things like that, to do, you know, molten salt reactors, or, you know, all these different types of, you know, technologies that are more stable, and different, you know, types of things that are out there. And so I think that will advance. And, you know, there is that interesting, like, you know, thing. You have to run them out for a long time. They do provide, you know, clean power when they're running, and it's like, you know, making sure the management of that is all done correctly. We here in Arizona have the Palo Verde, you know, nuclear power plant that provides a huge portion of Arizona's power. I think it's at least 25%, if not 50. Yeah, so um, or maybe it's 50% of the renewables, I think, of Arizona, or what are they categorized as renewables. And so, you know, it's you know, it can be a huge factor to things. I think, you know, what's going to happen, I think, you know, with technology advancing and storage growing and those things coming together, and then the technology increasing and the cost coming down on solar. And I think that will eventually actually combine with like more technology like building integrated solar.
Mm-hmm.
So you see, you're like Musk has been talking about forever, like the roof panels are solar. You see technologies out there where the windows have a film on it, different things that go on the outsides of buildings. So things that can integrate, and cost and efficiencies are bad on those. They don't make sense typically, but the solar panels do if you buy them and own them and have them installed for a good price. And they produce good power during the day. And if you can store that power, or then I think the future is, what I would like to see is decentralized, energy. So that creates strength. I think then, so this is that 20-minute moment that we fast forwarded to from the people that cut earlier, uh, is basically, having, little microgrids, is, I think, is the future of things. So building the power on your house, being able to generate the power and store the power that you need on your house and on every single house that's out there. And then those houses are connected into the network and can also work together. But there also needs to be a system where people can own the power they generate,
Mm-hmm.
and that's tracked. And all this is easily doable, if all the pieces just come together.
Mm-hmm.
Like you use blockchain or different things like that to track energy and sell it on the market and create, value
Mm-hmm.
in your account, as you own it and you run it. But it hasn't happened. It's all possible. It's all doable. Like that could happen today. All that technology is like here and viable and like cost affordable today. You just need all the minds to come together to build that way to connect it. But then you fight the utility. The thing that needs to come down to is legislation to have, choice in where you can get your energy from, because it's been a monopoly, and it needs to be a free market. I believe that, we should have, free enterprise, and, have a competitive environment, and have people be able to go in and provide energy for houses, not just from a utility company now, because energy is different than it was a long, long, long time ago. It's not the same thing.
Have you ever heard of you know what DARPA is, right?
Yeah.
Defense Advanced Research Project Agency. Have you ever heard of their, not to be confused with the international uh like uh cooperated effort to make nuclear fusion become a reality? That's called ITER, ITER. Not that. There's a DARPA project that was called ITER, EATR.
Mm-hmm.
And what it was autonomous robots that could break down organic tissue and use it as fuel. Live animals, dead animals. Didn't matter if they were decomposing for a while.
That sounds like a world takeover movie right there.
Well, what if energy problems cross that point on the grid, on the graph of overpopulation problems?
Well, so energy,
Is there
what's
a dark future?
yeah. Now, what's interesting too is all that's, and not on the robot scale, but all that's viable, because you can make, it's bio waste, it's bio, so it's like total normal technology that's been out there for a long time, like you're saying, and it's been used. And so there's now, people are, like I'm saying, with a couple of different ideas, business ideas I have, but people are starting to connect the dots and make new solutions where, we've got a company we've worked with called QCI that basically is trying to take the garbage, which is, an underused, misappointed resource,
Mm-hmm.
basically, and then take those and filter it and build it into resources and different things like that, then that we can do things with. And so that's a big gold mine actually in the future, I think, is garbage. I've seen a lot of companies. If you want to talk about the energy side of garbage, there's a huge there's a million different pieces to that puzzle. And I've been to a bunch of different companies. I've toured their facilities. I've gone through them, and there's a bunch of cool different things around garbage. But they all need to come together to create one solution, so it just takes care of everything. That's the problem. Is this one deals with this, and this one deals with this, and this one deals with this, and they don't come together to just go, okay, let's deal with garbage. We deal with garbage, and get rid of it all.
So, you know how Google bought up Boston Dynamics like 5 years ago?
Mm-hmm.
You know what Boston Dynamics is?
Are
The
these?
the robot company.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
They build like the dogs and everything.
Right. Yeah. Like the stuff you see. So, have you ever seen Black Mirror?
No.
I think that's what it's called. It's on Netflix.
No,
Okay.
I know a lot of people always reference it. I've never
Yeah.
watched it.
Yeah. They have an episode with those robot dogs. Well, their version of it. It's kind of crazy. It'll creep you out if you watch it. Go watch it tonight, and then it'll creep you out after we have this.
So, what if Google starts buying up those garbage bio waste companies and we have the robots that can run on organic matter? I mean, think about I think it was called Operation Gas Station or something. But in World War II, we realized we couldn't destroy every German tank, or we could, but it would deplete our men because one of their tanks could take 4 of ours. So they had some war planners look at it, and they were like, "Hey, instead of trying to destroy tens of thousands of German tanks, they found like 5 like tank factories." And they're like, what if we just bombed these 5 factories instead of bombing 10,000 tanks? Jeez, my throat is on fire. And then they looked further and they were like, well, one power plant supplies the power to these 5 factories.
Right.
What if we just nailed this one power plant? And we did. And it helped usher in the end of the war.
Yeah.
Another huge thing is, it's like Patton wanting to go to Berlin, and he was asking, just like in the movie, he was asking Eisenhower, give me 400,000 gallons of fuel. The point is it's not just men and military. It's all logistics. It's all cutting off supply lines. So power reinforces everything. It doesn't matter how many tanks you have if they don't have anywhere to fill up.
Yep.
In the coming war with China and the continent of Africa, which you so clearly want, Preston, is for purposes. Preston never wanted any of that. I won't slander his reputation. I mean, what would be more effective than a robot that would kill people and then be able to eat them for fuel instead of needing power? It would be decentralized warfare, which is like the darkest possible outcome. But okay, let's look at it in a less ghoulish way. What if you had robots that were fueled from organic waste, meaning you never have to gas them up, you never have to fuel them, and you could just let them run wild, right? Like there's a garbage patch, right? And somewhere in the Pacific that's like bigger than Texas. It's just garbage.
Mm-hmm.
What if you could have machines that clean it up and they run on the garbage? I mean, is there like a self-fulfilling? I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, that's the thing people, can create and do. Like, I know companies, I've worked with a couple different companies that have solutions around plastic. That big island you're talking about in the ocean's mostly plastic, from what I understand. I haven't seen it myself, but and so if we took that amount of plastic, we could take that and return that into usable fuels that we could use instead of fossil fuels or different things like that, so we can regenerate at least resources that are waste. So there's different things, and we can do that. I mean, we can make jet fuel, we can make all these different types of things from that, and that would be a huge resource. But it's just getting it. Someone tried to get it. Someone I don't know if you saw that a couple years ago or whatever it was. I don't go backwards perfectly, but someone went out there and like tried to lasso the thing in, and like deal with it, and then it didn't work. But
Didn't some kid win an award because he was building this technology that, like, I don't know, somehow, I mean, clearly it didn't work because it's still there, but
yeah, yeah. But at least people are they're the rocket ship, people. The people are
Mhm.
carrying something. People are doing something to make a solution that's trying. And that's what's tough. I look at these companies and I go, there's good technology out there, but the investment capital needs to line up with the risk. Like, because you're saying, people need to get their money back, or they don't want to put the money up. So that's that bridge to get the new adoption of things. But I think too, going back and connecting to something we just mentioned is my idea with decentralizing things secures things. Because if everyone makes their own power, then you don't have that vulnerability, because we have these huge, huge vulnerabilities right now in our country. And then who makes the parts? Who makes the freaking, transmitters, that if they take out and they go down, where do we have to get them from? Well, we don't make them. And so, like, we have these vulnerabilities in our system, and they can take out massive areas of power, in our country that can hurt us. And so the system needs to be decentralized. It needs to be, spread out to the people, so we don't have like what happened in Texas a little while ago, where they freeze up the pipes, and the whole place is wiped out for a long time. And it's out of the people's power, and it's out of people's ability to do anything about it. And so how we make solutions that are better, that actually work, redirect those monies into things that make a system that works, because it can still be a system. It can still be a municipality, even if the monetization of it's controlled through the municipality. you know it can all be on a phone, and it can be all tracked through technology, and connected together. And that's how it can actually work to support the community and be safe, and redirected if it's needed or whatever, for those types of things, and then commoditized back to the creator of the energy. So it builds value with people, everything. I don't know, but yeah, building, we need to make our everything secure, all these different pieces. Make production goes back to agriculture is a big part of renewable energy too, because it creates a lot of waste. They use a lot of water, historically in the past. um, to grow, farm, to have food and animals, it's very tough. They're very high consuming, and then they create a lot of gases, and they used to spray a lot of different poisons on the food and cause problems to communities with respiratory things, and stuff like that. And so, all these solutions need to be comprehensive. We need to, be able to make sustainable food that's accessible for people. We need to have water, and we need to have electricity, and those things, all go together. They go hand in hand, and that creates life.
that was beautiful. What about, do you know anything about helium-3? Isn't that a huge resource on the moon that's been theorized for forever in science fiction, that, like, the next oil rush or the next gold rush is going to be helium-3 on the moon?
Yeah, I don't know. I am not
I
up
don't know anything
on
about it.
that. Yeah, I am not. So I don't want to, say something wrong, but I don't doubt to. I mean, that's why everyone, all these really rich, crazy, cowboy, pioneer, entrepreneur people want to go to the moon, because that's the next thing. That's the next cutting edge. And so whoever gets up there and figures out something to do with it, it's this open range, this uncharted territory, and this thing that they can claim exclusivity to.
Do you, we got, you cool with another 15 minutes?
What?
Sorry, are you cool with another 15 minutes?
Yeah.
Are you sure?
Yep.
When do you think we're going to start seeing asteroid mining by those same kind of cowboys you're talking about, a Bezos, a Musk, a Zuckerberg, uh, whoever, Bill Gates? When do you think we're going to start seeing that? Because I mean, when there's an asteroid full of rare earth metals that has a value of like $30 trillion. It's the size of Manhattan. It's made out of palladium.
Mm-hmm.
How long until you think we see asteroid miners?
Yeah. No, I think that has to be, where there's enough big business in launching things that can accomplish that you can justify the waste. So
Yeah.
that's a little ways out, as far as being able to justify it. But you see these new frontiers, like Mars. That's what people are trying to conquer now. That's kind of I think, next big territory, that really, people have their sights on stuff. I think that's where a lot of advancement in future is actually going to happen.
Have you ever heard? And I love conspiracies, but perhaps my favorite one is one I'd never thought of. It's right. Conspiracies, you always think like moon landing, JFK, whatever. But I heard one I'd never heard of before, and it was the gold rush conspiracy. And it was, we knew there was no gold out in California, but the heads, like the business and political movers and shakers of America, were like, yo, there's an easy way we can take over the rest of this land. Just tell everyone there's gold. I mean, how are the Indians going to stop us when 100,000 Americans with rifles and wagons and once they get there, they can't come back. I mean, it
Yeah.
takes 3 months to get out there and half the people die. So once you
Yeah.
get out there, you don't find any gold. Just say
Yeah.
fuck it and you just build a town and boom.
Yeah.
Now it's America. And
Yeah.
it was the quickest way to settle America. I think it's brilliant. It's evil, but it's brilliant.
Yeah.
Stephen Hawking
That's
said it.
interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. So Stephen Hawking, yeah, it's my favorite one because it's so simple, but
Mm-hmm.
plot right. I mean, there was
Yeah.
such education was such uh, a gate kept thing that
Right.
who's going to question it? There's gold
Yeah.
out there. Oh shit! I'm working in a textile mill, 18
Right.
hours a day. There's gold out in those hills,
Yeah.
and then they don't come back. Now, Stephen Hawking said right before he died, right, the most important thing for humanity to do is to get off this planet, right?
Mm-hmm.
Elon Musk said, like, we need to get off this. We need a backup. Jesus, my throat hurts. Sponsored by Ricola. Is Musk going to get to Mars? And is he just going to lie through his teeth and be like, there's gold, there's gold, there's gold and oil everywhere? Get tens of thousands of people to come out there. No one's coming home.
Yeah.
That wasn't really a question. I don't know why I proposed that.
I will not be on that bus.
Me neither.
No, I will not. Not maybe if there's some investment, we made it or something. I'll go there, but
I'll invest in it, but I won't do it.
yeah. But yeah, no, it's interesting to see, what will happen. What are politics? There's a cool show on Netflix too. I'm pumping Netflix now, I guess. On Mars. Yeah, that was interesting. That kind of has some of those kind of back end things, like, what do they show? What's dangerous? What's not? It's kind of like the challenge of, NASA or space, anything. Like, people die, things blow up. Like, this is not normal stuff. It was like I was on a part of a race team, world record race team. Valerie Thompson and Target 550. They have a 16-cylinder, 5,000 horsepower all-wheel drive car. They're trying to be the fastest car in the world, fastest piston-driven car in the world. And she already has some world records, being the fastest woman on a motorcycle and different things like that. But they're doing things that people haven't done before. So things, will you be safe going down that? Even on that, that's just driving on the land. You don't know. I never actually know. And so those people that venture out there, they don't know. Things happen, accidents happen. And so, yeah, but they do. They have to. They try and portray it as safe, to get the funding, to get the backing, to get all the, support behind it, to get, to make the things happen. And there is that question too of like, is it, can they do that? What can they do that to? How much should they show? How much should they not show? What is it worth, to get the mission done?
Jesus. Do you think do you think one way instead of, new bad or it's like you can make a dollar out of it, you can get a dollar bill or 4 quarters or 10 dimes or whatever. There's different ways to reach the challenge
Right.
or to fulfill a goal. With car batteries, if it's not nuclear energy, if we can't get the minerals needed, whatever, do you think one way around it would be to more efficiently not even change the electric cars, just take them as they are today? No changes, no proposed stuff. Take the electric cars as they are today. If you had automated ones, and if you had roads that were only for automated cars, no human driven car, you could just have designated roads, whatever, right?
Mhm.
If all those cars could be in sync, communicating with each other 1,000 times a second,
Yep.
where it's not that, there's a leader and everything else moves after the leader, but rather like a flock of birds where they move instantaneously together.
Mhm.
Well, if you could have whole highways of cars communicating together and moving, they'd all brake a little bit at the same time. They'd all speed up a little bit at the same time. You wouldn't have stop and go. And that's where the majority of energy is spent, right? Is starting up again after you slow down, right? Yeah, that's where there's like regenerative. I'm having a stroke. Regenerative braking. I can't talk.
Yeah. No. Yeah.
Would it be having cars or whole? There's an idea that like semi trucks, like Nikola semi trucks, they'll all deliver their goods in the middle of the night because there's no one on the roads, and they could all drive basically like a train, and they could draft off one another, and it saves so much energy.
Mhm.
And I mean, what if you could have whole highways doing that to where they're all moving together? I feel like you could save so much energy. Would that be a way to work around it?
Right. No, absolutely. That's where I think, and I've said this a lot, but that's totally, I think uh, that autonomous vehicles and electric vehicles are a perfect solution. I think it's a bunch of different ways that you can overcome public transportation, shipping, ownership of vehicle, monetization, all sorts of cool different ideas you can do. And then all of the problems, all of the challenges that that are supposedly challenges with autonomous vehicles can be programmed out with some infrastructure design. Like you're saying, like we were just talking about, use the carpool lanes, or whatever, in theory, like to make it visible for people as autonomous vehicle lanes. And so, only the AVs can go in there, they pull off, they pull on, they work together. And then two, I think there's so much advancement in design that can happen. So if cars can drive themselves, and we don't need to sit in the car like we used to sit in the car,
Mhm.
we can have a different experience in the car. Like I could be sitting here with a desk and internet and Wi-Fi, and we could be having a meeting, and I could be having my lights on, and the thing could just be smoothly cruising down the
Mhm.
street. I could have the windows open or shut.
Mhm.
And it could be like you're saying, they could have like little round, connections, and they just drop in line and lane, and go right behind each other, and have 100 of them in line, and they know when the one's going to pop out, it shifts
Uh-huh.
out and pulls off, and you go to the rest of your
And they,
destination, and you're only on half power. you
yeah,
know
you could
yeah,
you could also charge up that way,
right.
right? You
Yep.
pull up behind a bus that has a full battery,
Hmm.
you dock, and it gives you some, through conduction, it gives you some energy. It's all about so you don't have to stop at a gas station, so there's not that slow down, speed up. Yeah, man, that's insane.
Yeah.
That would be
Yeah.
insane.
Yeah. You can do all sorts of things, or there's technologies too, like ideas of charging through the ground, or different things. And two, looking at what's existing and what's happening right now. What does that mean for companies? A-
Mhm.
And so, where are people going to be spending their time? Where are people going to be, doing these things? Uh, because they're going to have to charge their cars, instead of get gas, they're going to charge their cars. Are they going to go to a convenience store, or are we going to put chargers at whatever turns into the office, of the future, or will it be at gyms, where people typically stay for at least, a half an hour so that they can actually get their charge, and then the gyms can monetize the charging. Now, I think a gym would be a great place to put a charge station in, but you look at workplaces, as everyone's driving their electric cars. My wife has one right now, and she drives it down, and she works down here at ASU at the college, and she drives it down there, and they only have a couple of charging stations. They have 100,000 students, and they have one charging station on each floor of her parking structure, one electric charging station on each floor. So if it's, full, then she can't park in another building. So she's got like 4 parking spots, basically, or whatever it is. Maybe there's 2 on each level, but it's very limited. And so, but this is going to grow, so how is that going to change? How is the infrastructure going to change? How is it going to, work for people? Because it's got to work for people's lives, or people won't adopt it. So all those have to fit.
And then last thing, when I saw the Cybertruck, the first thing I thought was they're going to make a cyber camper. There's going to be an RV, and it's going to be the coolest thing in the world, because you're just going to go to bed and be like, I'm in Atlanta, I want to wake up in Boston. And you can just wake up in Boston, or you can wake up in LA. I think that's going to be nothing to do with efficiency. It's just going to be badass. Are you going to get a Cybertruck, Preston?
That first of all, that would be like
The
the
coolest.
modern day cruise ship.
Imagine just one of those big RVs. The ones that with like
Yeah.
2 wheels in the back.
Oh yeah, I almost bought one of those once. It was
Really?
like one of those. It was used. It was back in my car dealer days. It was used, and it was one of those ones that you see like a NASCAR driver, or
Yeah.
a rock star,
Yeah.
have. It was a Newark. They're one of those high end companies. They make like ones that are over $1 million.
Awesome. They're
It's like,
so awesome.
yeah. Yeah, but they're hard to park and do this. But that would be amazing though to have, and housing's so changing right now, and work is changing, and that would be so cool to be able to, float around from city to city and have all that, plug and unplug and drop it on the ground and drive your truck. But I don't know if I'm going to get a Cybertruck or not. I don't know. I want to get something electric for sure. And I think trucks and SUVs are really cool. I mean, we have a little electric car, but I think trucks and SUVs are the way to go with electric in the future, because you can have all the power, all the torque. You have all the size, so you fit the batteries in it. You get the range. You get everything all in one car. But I like the Rivian. I don't know if you've seen that, or Rivian or whatever. They have the R1T and the, or maybe I'm S1T or something like that. They have a truck and they have an SUV, but the Cybertruck's really cool too. It with all the power specs and everything on it, and it's just insane. So I don't know. It's an open range, and here's what's cool. This has never been the case before in at least a long time. Someone can come in and be a major auto manufacturer. That was impossible because now it's not necessarily one of the big companies that's going to win out in the electric car game, because they're trying to adapt cars to be electric, and electric startup car companies are trying to take ideas and turn them into a car. And there's a lot more creativity, coming from the independent people, and the technology is pretty simple, and can be adapted in new ways. So the car people need to come out of the box, like the big manufacturers, the GMs and the Fords and the Toyotas and the whatever.
So do you think there are going to be any significant Tesla challengers?
I do. They have such a jump on the market. It'll be very hard to, catch up. But I think that some companies will. I think some companies will probably do it by carving out a market space and then going after a target market space, because I don't think someone will dominate the whole car market.
Mm-hmm.
So if it's going to be, a new startup car company, they need to make a awesome truck,
Mm-hmm.
or they need to make an awesome van, you know, or they need to make like a really cool race car convertible or whatever. They need to have like a really niche thing that's cool. And then they get adoption, then they can kind of build out. That's like if you look at Nikola, the motor company, they're doing the semis. Now they've got, if you want to talk cool trucks, they've got a cool truck too called the Honey Badger. Look that one up. It's like 1,000 horsepower truck with like, that looks like it would now jump a Ford Raptor and, whatever. It looks cool. But, so it's like all, those types of companies that are startups, they get that base product and then they can kind of build out, these other things. So they have side by sides, they have wave runners, they have different stuff, that they're building out. And so that's the way to approach it. But that's where you'll see someone come in and then they'll kind of start to line up and gain market share with the car world.
When are you gonna start an RV company that runs on autonomous shit?
I need to get Airstream to contact me, and then I'll just partner with their existing, platform, and we'll figure out how to do it.
Dude, an autonomous RV. I mean, that would just be insane.
Yeah,
It'd
like
be insane.
oh yeah, like I always love the toy haulers because I like toys. Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, like they have all the cool toy haulers with the door that drops down in the back and everything.
Yeah. I mean, if you could get like a bulletproof one, you could go from like the tip of South America to the tip of North America because you'd have to go through like
Oh yeah,
Mexico. You have to go through the cartels.
yeah.
So you maybe need some like you maybe need some heavy armor.
Yeah.
But
That's the issue. They make those things as light as possible. That's why, like, if you ever see, I don't know if you've ever seen one catch on fire, is not good. They they burn up like that. I've
R-
seen,
RVs?
yeah, RVs, yeah, or
Oh
campers,
shit.
because they're just thin. They're like thin. I don't know, but maybe the newer ones are safer. But I've seen, some of the older ones just burn up in seconds, because when the whole things are made like light, you could punch through the whole wall probably if were uh,
If you're a
vigilant
cartel.
enough. If you could do that. You could just punch through the wall, like, and it explodes out the backside.
Preston, let's wrap this one up. My not that I don't like the idea of blowing up an RV. I'm 100% on board for that. My throat is on fire, and
You need a break.
I don't know what this is like. It's getting absurd. Like I can't focus. Like
And so this is the love. This is the love and the dedication that you have for your people to share messages and to share the word, that you fight through anything, pain, thick, thin, whatever, having to talk to people like me, anything, and you just do it. And you
I'm
do.
I'm Cal Ripken. I'm playing through the pain. I'm yes, and so because of that, all my followers, you need to go buy my sweaters to show your appreciation for me. So Preston Weeks, thank you. Where can they find you on Instagram? Operations X.
Yeah, well, check out, I put update all the time, prestonslinks.com. So www.prestonslinks.com. And that's got links to all my websites. It's got links to new things that are happening, and I update it. So yeah, check it out.
Oh yeah. Thank you so much, man. Thank you for bearing with me through my bitching about my throat. It's
Thanks for toughing it out.
anything for you, Preston. Anything. All right,
Awesome.
all right, big man. Take care.
Take care.